righty. And we're going live.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to some. Oh, we got that already. Okay. My name is Gregory Sneed, and welcome to the community briefing. We will be having our guest today, Marcelo Bermudez, and he'll be sharing some information with us about capital. My business, I help my clients keep more of the money that they make. Everybody is accustomed to making money, but it's a challenge to keep as much as you can. So my company is Lifesaver Financial Services. I've been in the financial services market now for 40 plus years, and it's my pleasure to assist and help you. All information in the chat box for you to reach out. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the queen of our community briefing, Ms. Crystal Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you. Continue to support the community briefing. The platform was created primarily to make sure that our community was connected with our leaders and stakeholders who are making decisions on our behalf. And we really need to be all involved in that process. So that's why it's here. It's a networking platform that is sponsored by Recycling Black Dollars and the Black Business Association, the BBA. And we have a great team here that's bringing amazing stuff to you. I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, as well as a business coach and business owner here in Los Angeles. And I do consulting and coaching for small businesses in our community to help them create successful businesses. So welcome. We're glad to have you. We're excited about our guest today. And I just learned some stuff about him that I really like him. Just hearing what I heard, I really like him. So welcome. We have some new faces, Lawrence and Michael and Catherine. Glad to have you. And of course, our faithful Mr. Roger Dangerman Tinsley. So I'm going to turn that back over to Greg, and we're going to get started. Thank you, guys.
Steven, you're staying on the back end of it? All right. So today we have Marcelo Bermudez, CEPA. Is that a Certified Exit Planning Advisor, something like that?
Correct.
All right, cool. CEPA. So he has a business in helping people have access to capital for commercial real estate, commercial businesses, equipment finance, tax credit syndication for renewable energy projects, assistance with COVID-19, rescue capital, PPP, the EIDL, Paycheck Protection Program, working with the SBA, getting tax equity, new market credits, historic tax credits. I'm not sure I know what that is. Like, will it tell us more about that? Renewable energy tax credits, and going through. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Shōkunin, Inc., and he's been there with that company or running that company for the last 15 years plus. Prior to that, he was with Figueroa Capital Group. He's written a book. He's got some books that he's written, an author. He is a graduate of the University of Southern California. He also went to Santa Barbara City College, and he is a certified commercial investment member candidate, and also a MBA from USC. Fantastic. So please join me in welcoming Marcelo Bermudez.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me to this. My name is Marcelo Bermudez. I have a short presentation I'll just kind of walk you through. I'm going to share my screen with something that I just kind of put together because I think if you were around and remember in Living Color, there was a show called Hey Man, and it was how many jobs you got. And, I like making that joke because what I've learned in my lifetime is that you're given gifts, and you have to make use of them. And so I've always kept a round table of mentors in my life, people who are more successful, have much more wisdom to offer, to kind of slap me around and kind of keep me in check when I'm moving around. But thankfully, by doing that, you also get a lot of encouragement and people who want to open doors. And so I encourage you to do the same, to keep a round table of mentors around you. They don't have to be in the same industry as yours. They can just be people who can offer you a different perspective. And so I have people who are attorneys, who are in the nonprofit world, who are pastors, who are religious leaders in their community, and just people who are leaders in their particular industry. And so, although I own a Shōkunin, I have kind of an overlapping kind of an umbrella brand called Fresh Water. And the idea is to kind of help people find that drink of water that is truly refreshing for themselves and for their business. So I kind of cover three areas, which is finance, real estate, and media. And Shōkunin, like I mentioned, is kind of commercial finance. And just so you understand, the word Shōkunin is a Japanese word. It's basically talks about an obligation for a person to do his or her best, while also keeping the general welfare of the community in mind. And that really spoke to me in terms of my own value system and the types of deals that I want to be involved in. And so I'm thankful that there has been times where I've been able to say no to deals just because they just didn't fit kind of what I wanted to do in my life in terms of how I wanted to spend my time. So aside from the capital access, the health crisis taught me that as clients were coming to me, how unprepared they were for an unforeseen event. And there are what they are called the 5 Ds. There's divorce, death, disability, distress, and dispute. And when those things happen, you're often kind of put behind the 8 ball, where you are being forced to do something rather than trying to do something on your terms. And so I spent during the health crisis advancing my skill set. And so one of which was getting my CEPA or CEPA designation, a Certified Exit Planning Advisor designation, which helped me to kind of build my skill set in and around exit planning. So if you're a business owner, whether you're getting ready to sell in 30 days or in 30 years, the idea is to kind of help clients put the processes in place so that they are basically best in class in their industry, so they can maximize the value of the sale. Because most private business owners, a majority of their net worth is tied into their business. So in addition to that, when you sell a business, there is a windfall of income. And so I have a practice where I syndicate tax credits. Today, I'm actually, after this meeting, I'm going to go visit a client who just sold their business for 9 figures. And so they have a significant tax burden that they need to resolve before the end of the year. And so we're going to show them a couple of projects in the qualified opportunity zone, a couple of renewable energy projects, and just some general ideas and ways that they can reduce their tax burden while also making smart investments. In addition, I'm about to get certified by the state of California Bar Association for mediation, as well as receivership services. I had put an investment thesis at the beginning of the year in terms of where are we headed. And so my decision was to believe that people are going to come to Jesus in the 4th quarter and beyond. With the government supports expiring, people will have to make a decision about whether or not their going concern can go on. And if not, they have to make a decision as to sell, or if they have to file for bankruptcy. And that can be for commercial real estate as well as general business. And so I decided to get my certification with the state bar. Even though I'm not an attorney, it was a nice program that I thought would kind of be a value add as I network with other attorneys who who have clients who are going to be needing that. As well as receivership services, is basically you kind of take over a property on behalf of the court, and to make sure that the utilities are getting paid, that the cleanup is being done, and basically kind of keeping the property or bringing the property back to a standard that is required, and then ensuring that if there are investors involved or whatever, that those people are satisfied. In terms of my own investments, I have an entity called Wheel Estate, which I focus kind of on value add, opportunistic strategies. I'm a big fan of RV parks, mobile home parks, RV and boat storage, contractor and equipment storage yards. And with that, we also have something that we're going to be starting probably in 2022 is what we call supportive and co-housing concepts for licensing. So it's kind of intentional housing that supports a culture of sharing and caring while actualizing value. This works really well for people with special needs. I have a son who is a person with autism, and have learned or have been part of that, has been part of that community for about 10 years now. And so there's a substantial need to ensure that people with those types of special needs actually live an independent life. And so we are getting ready to put out a platform that allows family members to make an investment into something versus just kind of, being at the mercy of what is available in terms of low-income housing. Handles is a brand that we'll also be launching next year. It's kind of affordable on-demand storage and parking and short-term workspaces for the trades professionals and small business owners. As a person who has, I've been working from home almost all my life. You learn how it's important to kind of separate, business from family. And when I started out in design, build, construction, I had 4 trucks parked in my driveway. I had my garage full of equipment, and it was very hard to kind of separate your personal from your business life. And so the concept is basically looking at the storage yards that we have bought or looking to buy, and kind of converting that into kind of on-demand space for trade professionals and small business owners. Lastly is the Incubate Mini Studios or My Temple Studios. One of my clients is a production studio operator. I'll show you my pipeline in a minute, but we are busy acquiring land or looking to acquire existing production studio facilities. I will be inserting myself within the studios to offer rentable space for YouTubers, content creators who need small space if they're looking to do a podcast or something like that, where you basically rent a very small space for about the cost of a hotel room. And then I have an acre of land that the reason I'd gone to Santa Barbara City College was, part of my maintaining my mental health was I got a certificate in permaculture design. And so we are preparing the soil that we have on the land that we own to have a small farm, chickens, the whole thing, and kind of making a regenerative system where you have a food forest and kind of growing food for yourself, and kind of showing that you can do small scale organic farming for yourself and for your community. As you mentioned, I've written a book. It's called You're Our Only Hope, Why You Need to Look in the Mirror to Save the World. And it's really about accountability to yourself. It's unfortunate the amount of rhetoric that we have seen over the prior White House administration, and that has leached onto the current administration. And so the book is really about looking to yourself and being honest with yourself about how you can literally save the world by being honest with yourself and stepping into your purpose. I'm a big fan of marriage. I've been married 9 years. My wife and I, actually, we met in high school. I dumped her for the cheerleader, and then 20 years later, we got back together. I recently adopted her kids. They've always called me dad, but we were able to take the formal step of going through the court system and actually having me adopt them, which has been an amazing experience. My son and I are working on a book about autism and independence called Headbanger. My son, when he was younger, could not speak. And so the only way he could communicate was through frustration and oftentimes he would bang his head on the wall. And so he's made substantial progress. He's in college now. He's on the track team at Moore Park College, and having a wonderful time in his first year in school there. And then I have some ideas regarding kind of legal business fiction called Max Reigns, and similarly, kind of climate agriculture science fiction books. I've taken a meeting with some of the streaming agencies. We've pitched a couple of projects. One is called Gap City, kind of celebrating single parents as powerful and intelligent beings who nurture the future of any nation. And so we're kind of utilizing storytelling and reenactments to recognize the various gaps in access to education, career achievement, mentoring, emotional adjustment, achievement for children, et cetera. So we've taken a couple of meetings. There's definitely some interest. And then we have a project called Room 826, kind of referring to George Floyd. But basically, it's the idea is kind of a reality pitch where we're taking well-known leaders in business, education, science, tech, and the arts to mentor diverse debate teams on topics across the ideological spectrum to kind of create cathartic and enlightening moments that teach themselves and the audience. And that was something that I had put together last year after seeing what happened with George Floyd. That I really believe that we have a lot more in common than the differences that you might see in the media. And so this has also been well received, and we're hoping to be able to launch that very soon. Similarly, as you can see behind me, there's a little bit of kind of design, and that is by no accident. We've thought about putting together kind of a channel called Thoughts and Prayers, kind of designed to take kind of this meaningless expression and substitute for action into a powerful tune where you can tool, that can kind of transform your ability to be a better citizen. And then you already know about me, but I will kind of take the time to show you a little bit of a pipeline just to kind of help you see. Let me just make sure you can see what I'm seeing. Let's see, let's turn this off. There we go. So you just kind of see kind of the different projects that I've been working on as of late. Like I mentioned, the studio production facilities, we just closed on 160 acres up at Santa Clarita Valley, an existing facility. We're looking at additional facilities in Toronto. The client is one of 3 finalists to take over the old Google City project that fell apart there. And I've just been about to be hired for a 250-unit market rate multifamily construction of perm loan in the West Adams district there on La Cienega Boulevard near Ivy Station. I've looked at infrastructure. We're trying to save a deal in a water storage facility transaction up north. And then you kind of see there's a different kind of a plethora of different things of need out there. Replacement capital, private equity, construction, placing investors, finding investors looking to develop housing for the workforce community. Brownfields, I have a client who's been buying contaminated properties and then cleaning them up and selling them to developers for significant arbitrage. One of my clients is a competitor to Topgolf. And then on the commercial business side, I just helped fund a tech company for pre-series A capital. They're a software developer kind of providing basically an architecture to insert ads inside video games. And I have also helped them to find some board members for the company. And then the aviation industry took quite a big hit, so I've helped clients find money to stay afloat. Mobile home lending, direct, term loans and revolvers in the digital media space. I did a leverage buyout last summer. And then I've done quite a bit of renewable energy projects in the sale leaseback space. I've done some work in the cannabis space, and it's been very interesting to kind of see how difficult it has been for a lot of people who thought this was going to be the mecca in terms of making money, but they see how hard it is. So I'm glad to have been on the plant touching as well as the non-plant touching side, for testing, for equipment that seem to have done very well on this business. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to, if there are any questions, or if you would like, I can share some war stories in terms of kind of projects that I've worked on where things have gone incredibly wrong and incredibly right.
You are a hidden jewel in the Southern California area, aren't you? My goodness gracious. And it's so
and
funny.
because I don't have enough time in my life, I'm also part of the 2021-22 cohort for the Ventura County Leadership Academy. There's a similar group called CORO. You might have heard of CORO in Los Angeles. It's very similar. So you meet once a month, kind of focusing on issues that affect the county. So you're meeting with state and city and county officials. You're doing immersion activities. Yesterday, I met with the city of Oxnard to understand kind of what their needs are. And so, we're going to meet 10 times, and then we finalize the academy in May, where we'll be flying up to Sacramento to meet with legislative officials.
Fantastic. We adjust your sound. We lost it a little bit there. The volume went really low. But yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm going to have to say before Greg jumps in with some questions, I was having a conversation with a colleague yesterday on our community and how many leaders that we have lost, and that there were no succession plans. And so I was contemplating putting together a seminar, webinar with Recycling Black Dollars on preparing our businesses for succession. And Lord and behold, God just delivered you. Because I was like, okay, where am I going to collect these people from? Because this is something I think that's very, very important. I got word yesterday, we lost about 18 leaders over the last year that had significant impact on our communities. And so when, as you said, post-pandemic, there's going to be a lot that we're not aware of today that's going to be significant on how we move forward. So I definitely want to speak to you afterwards, because I think that's really, really important. We build these amazing organizations, and then our leaders die, and then the organizations go to the wayside, and then we have a big vacant hole, both in the Black and the brown community. So I just wanted to say that. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
Well, he wasn't kidding. He celebrated the 30-year anniversary of Hey Man, because I counted at least 11 or 12 jobs. So he's no lazy bum,
And that's something big for Greg. For my other show here, my business part, my co-host, every Friday we have this Hey Man session on the Business Zone. And so Greg lit up. Cool.
Yeah, because I think it was believe it or not, it's this month, I believe, was the 30-year anniversary of that, not in Living Color, because Living Color I think came out the year prior, but I think that skit came out in the second season. Very, very good timing. So
Questlove from the Roots, the drummer from the Roots, Questlove, he's a hero of mine, because he's very similar in terms of the guy's always working and doing something,
So Marcelo, while I looked to the chat for questions, and guys, if you have questions for him, do take a moment and check your microphone settings. For 90% of your presentation, we're fine, and something changed recently, so your volume on your mic or setting may have changed. For those of you listening, thank you. If you have questions for Marcelo, please put them in the chat. A quick question for you is, like, you got a lot of things going on. What are the top 2 or 3 that you're like laser focused on?
So, my commercial finance business is what keeps the lights on. So I have a pretty robust pipeline related to kind of, what I would call, maybe it's not politically correct, but we call it elephant hunting. You kind of your bigger deals are going to take anywhere from 6 months to a year to make happen. Like today, the meeting I'm taking right after this presentation, we spoke to that client about 2 years ago. and kind of, paving the way in terms of education and getting them comfortable and understanding kind of qualified opportunity zones. And then there's kind of more, what I would say, kind of fast capital, which is client comes to me and says, hey, I need to buy a business, or I need to refinance my property. Those are 45 to 60-day plays. And so that's the focus in terms of kind of, the money maker that kind of keeps the lights on to kind of also fund the other projects. But the mini studio is something that is becoming very quickly kind of a priority because of the client that I mentioned. Okay, I see you can't hear me.
We hear you, but it's not, so on the bottom left where it says mute, unmute, there should be a little arrow, and it might be different microphone input selections. Sometimes Zoom can change them on you. So it might switch to your camera or something like that.
Okay,
Or
is
your
this better?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's better.
yeah. Yeah, there we go.
It must have
Okay.
jumped to your screen. That's what happens to mine from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that the mini studio concept is something that has been really picked up speed. There's a lot of interest, and the client who runs the studio operations, they basically want to use my platform to be a feeder for diverse content creators to get these people in the door so that when they do become the decision makers of tomorrow at the Amazon and Netflix and Paramounts of the world, they'll remember the studio as somebody who helped pave the way. So that is something that is going to pick up speed, I would think, this coming quarter and into early 2022.
Great. Let's see, one of the questions here, of the various financial stacks, which one, or plural ones, are the most obtainable into the market?
I'm not. Can you ask the question again? I just want to make sure I understand. I answer it correctly.
Okay, so I'm reading it literally. Is of the various financial stacks, which one or ones are the most attainable into the market?
So if you think of a triangle, the bottom of the triangle is debt, and that's kind of the least risk. And then as you move up to the top of the triangle is equity, and that's kind of the highest risk, highest return. Debt is kind of lower risk, lower return in terms of priority. And so it really depends kind of, what it is you're trying to do. If you're a startup and you don't have any money, you're probably going to have to give a piece of the pie because it is not a good business to lend money for an equity rated risk. And that is often sometimes disappointing for people when I have to kind of tell them you say it looks like debt, but this is really an equity position because of the fact that there's no cash flow, or it's conceptual, or the kind of risk profile that you're asking somebody to give you a loan at, say, 6 or 7% doesn't match. And so oftentimes what I'll help clients do is kind of redo their pro forma to kind of show this is what this needs to look like in order for you to get this off the ground. I'll give an example. I had a client who came to me about 5 years ago. It was a woman, a mature woman who had bought some property back in the 1980s and wanted to develop the property into a small project. It was a 3-unit condominium project. But the budget was about $1.8 million. And she just well, just go get me a construction loan. I said, well, it's not just that, it's also the experience. You haven't done anything in the last 30 years. Your background has nothing to do with commercial real estate or construction. My suggestion to you is, bring in a business partner who has done something in the last 24 to 36 months. And she didn't like what I had to say. And she said, well, I'll go find capital somewhere else. And I said, well, good luck. And, if you ever need anything, please call me. Well, I got a phone call over the summer saying, hey, do you still, work in real estate? Can you help me with my project? And she was about to be foreclosed on because she was unable to project manage
the actual construction of the project. And so she only got to about 65, maybe 70% completion, and she just lost the property. Unfortunately, she also secured the property with an additional cash flowing a property, and so she's also going to lose that as well. So she's going to lose probably 60% of her net worth, in my opinion, because of her hubris. You know, she could have maybe shared a little bit of the pie with somebody who had the experience and gone into completion, and she would have made a significant amount of money because her basis on the property is very low. You know, she bought the property in the 80s. It's been, you know, 30 plus years. There was a lot of equity to capture there, and unfortunately, she lost it.
Wow.
It's the old saying where 50% of a big number is a lot better than 100% of zero.
Yeah. Or worse, you know, because in this case, not only does she need to satisfy the loan that's outstanding, but even though the property is being foreclosed on, the sale price of that property is going to be less than what she owes. And so she's still going to have to resolve the difference, which is by losing the other property.
I find that even though we're all doing business, some areas we talk about financial literacy, and that's Greg's expertise, but there's a business financial literacy that most business owners don't possess. And that's understanding how money works and understanding how it flows. So if you're in the financial business, you get that, right? But most business owners don't get that because they're not in that space. They're in the space that they do. So I think it's really, it behooves all business owners to really become more entrenched in understanding how money works, and especially when it comes to your projects. Would you agree, Marcelo?
Absolutely. You know, there's a little bit of a myth, I would think, in terms of, you know, that you know, because you think that your idea is special, that you can take all the risk, and that is often a recipe for disaster, because, you know, you're afraid that somebody's going to steal your idea, or that maybe you just don't have the skill set in terms of negotiating a deal, in terms of sharing that pie. That's kind of where I have found our team to be offering a lot of value add. Because I was like, well, it's a really good idea, you know, it'll make money, everybody's going to be happy. It's like, well, you got to think about all the other things that can go possibly wrong. Nobody expects anything to go wrong. Nobody's trying to rip anybody off unless you really are a thief, you know. But, you know, if you have an idea like, I want to buy this small, you know, 5-unit building, and I want to renovate it and hold on to it and see rents grow, you know, understanding how the capital stack works is very, very important. And oftentimes when you get beyond the pro forma, which is, you know, basically the projection of how the property is supposed to perform, I see clients that often kind of like, well, that's kind of all I know, and I'll just split it, you know, 50-50 or 60-40, and they don't really understand kind of how syndication works. And so we can offer additional ideas and services in terms of putting those programs together.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Can you there's a couple of people here on this platform. I don't think it's Manetta, but there is someone that's out in the Thousand Oak area. She also works with the autistic. I don't think she's here today, but Manetta, is that you? I think it's someone else. I think it's Ella.
No,
But
it's not me.
okay. There's also we have a guy, Michael Anderson. He just wrote a book called Urban Planning, about the magic of urban planning. We definitely would like to connect you with him. He's got this $30 million project on creating multiple units, duplexes, so families can buy into to the housing market and get into the housing market in the Black community. So we definitely would like to make an introduction to you on that with him.
Wonderful.
Stephen has a question. What investment opportunities would you recommend for small real estate investors, and how can we work together?
Sure. So it really depends, I think, on somebody's risk tolerance. You know, my kind of go-to explanation is like, do you go buy a treasury bond and, you know, go golfing or go to the basketball court and just, you know, earn your interest, or do you do something that requires additional risk and return? And so, you know, kind of maybe at the residential level is doing something that you may see a lot, which is kind of house flipping. What's nice about those products is that you can often find there's a lot of bridge money out there that allows you to get up to 80% of the acquisition price and about 100% of the renovation cost. The key there is that, like I mentioned with this woman that lost her property, is that oftentimes they're going to want to see somebody who has at least done one project in the last 12 to 24 months. So if you don't have that experience, you would want to partner up with somebody who does. And so that is, I think, you know, it's one of those situations where you kind of have to put your ego aside and really, you know, commit to, this is not just about making quick money, but about a business and a lifestyle that you're trying to create. And so you can go from, you know, doing the ones and twos to jumping into multifamily, or you can just jump into multifamily, for example, which offers a higher leverage, you know, meaning loan to value and loan to cost, because there's just a dearth of lack of affordable housing.
Froze.
Mm.
Well,
Should be.
he froze.
You lose him? Yeah. Give him a couple seconds, see if he thaws out.
Well, I'd like to take this time again, Marcelo, to thank you for coming on the community briefing. You come with a wealth of information. Also like to pivot and give the opportunity for Michael Caroni. You have some information they'd like to update us on the vaccination. Michael? Michael, if you're so kind to unmute yourself.
Can he hear
It's
us?
Michael.
Good.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, how are you? I didn't know that there were a couple Michaels. I'm the only Michael today. Oh, it's two.
Yes. I know there's a Michael Evans today.
Oh, okay.
Only two today.
Yes. And what was your question, Mr. Turner?
Oh, if you could be so brief to kind of give us an update on the vaccination.
Yes, absolutely, sir. I would love to do that. Well, we're for the last week, we moved up probably an extra 1,000 Blacks in the last week that got vaccinated, around 6,000. We've been averaging somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 per week. And so last week we got an extra 1,000, which is great for them and their families in our community. And I just want, you know, the government to know that sometimes it takes longer for our people to get the messages and make decisions. And so we don't want them putting in all these punitive measures like pulling back healthcare and other things and making costs associated with COVID when our people are still lagging in the numbers. But what we're doing now in the community seems to be working because the rates are increasing, and we're hoping that leading into the cold months and the holidays that we can keep that going, because last year, this is when the big surge started to occur right around Halloween time. So we're still working hard to keep those numbers down. And vaccinations up, of course, yes.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank
and Marcelo, you had dropped off for a minute before,
Yeah.
And you were explaining. Could you continue your thoughts?
Sure.
How we can work together and what investment opportunities might be?
Absolutely. So, you know, I think that in terms of expectation, you know, commercial real estate or residential real estate, it's a long-term game. And so if you are, you know, trying to build a portfolio, then you're going to have to learn how to raise capital. And that could mean, you know, anywhere from, you know, starting at $5,000 to $50,000 to $500,000. And so what it means is learning how the capital stack works and doing a ton of networking. You know, I do quite a bit of when, you know, in my 20s and 30s, I'm in my 40s now, but they used to call me United Nations because I'd be at the Black CPAs, I'd be at the Korean Lawyers Association, I'd be at all these different events throughout the city and the county, just meeting hands and shaking hands with people, and their relationships that I still have today, from college to the present. And so a lot of it, I think, is you learn how to be of value to others. I'm always sending emails to friends and clients like, hey, I saw this article, I saw this video, I thought of you, how are things going? And next thing you know, you have an opportunity. So I would say that in terms of, finding, one is to basically find the opportunity and then just start going out and pitching. You got to be able to do the assessment pretty quickly. Residential is pretty tough in terms of there's a lot of competition out there. So hopefully you can build relationships with people in your community to understand, who's retiring, who's getting divorced, unfortunately, who's passed away. These are all opportunities where it's just like, hey, somebody needs a solution, and maybe you can be that person to offer it.
Fantastic. Greg had a question. Can you share with us some more information on the low-income housing tax credits and how that can impact affordable housing?
So tax credits are basically what they call a but-for argument. And basically it's, but for these tax credits, we would not be able to build this project. And so there are two types of tax credits, 4% and 9%. You would have to really have a deep understanding and relationships with community development entities, CDEs, because they're the ones that get the allocation. The allocation is often very limited. And what you will see is that a lot of the big name developers, so like Amcal, Sunrise, those players, they're building 200, 300 units, where the cost, the legal costs associated with getting those low-income housing tax credits make it worth it. It's basically a kind of a denominator factor situation, where it's just like, in terms of the costs associated with getting those tax credits in place is significant. But they absolutely are having an impact in areas where there's lack of investment. So if your basis on the property is pretty high, the tax credit can help you offset that to make it worth doing the project in an area that is underserved.
Okay. But it's really more to those larger development companies.
I would say that in terms of making them effective for your project, you're often going to need a larger dollar amount to make it work.
Okay.
And are those tax credits really having a measurable impact, if you will, on the development of lower income housing? Is it, and
because what you end up getting is you're getting an investment, you're getting access to the investment community of high net worth individuals who need to offset their tax burden. And so they're getting the benefit of the credit, you're getting the cash to build your project. So it absolutely helps to make a project pencil.
And is there much of that going on here in the Metro Los Angeles area? Yeah,
across the country, in cities where you see a lot of disinvestment or underinvestment, you will likely see if there's a project being built, and it's a place where it's like, wow, we haven't seen anything like this in years. It's very likely it has some type of tax credit attached to it, whether it's new market or low-income housing.
Oh.
And low income is differentiated from affordable housing, correct?
Well, no, it's not one and the same. For example, I'm being hired for a 250 unit project there on La Cienega. About 11% of the units will be set aside for very low income residents. And so that's basically they look at residents who are below a certain average median income. That person is not using any type of tax credit structure. His basis is low enough on the property. He bought the land in the late 70s, early 80s. And so his basis per square foot is like $15. Across the street, the developer who's doing their project, they spent almost $1,000 per square foot just for the land. So he doesn't need the tax credit to make the deal work. So it can still be affordable housing depending on what your basis is like. And unfortunately, especially in California, where there's a lot of speculation, because it's such an incredible state, land values unfortunately have skyrocketed. And so you often, if you want to do a non-market rate project where you want to offer workforce housing or low-income housing, which all kind of falls in the umbrella of affordable, you're probably using some type of tax credit or grant to make it work.
Marcelo, you know, in Los Angeles County, we definitely have a housing issue. And I know the governor just recently rezoned the Southern California area. But how, when we talk about 11% being allocated to affordable housing, how is that going to solve, or 15%, which is very small numbers when you calculate that into a number of units, and with rents being, you know, anywhere from a market being 2,500 to 3,500 a month, which your average human being can't spend that much money on rent. So how do we solve a housing problem here in Los Angeles if the rents are not affordable? Because they're not.
Absolutely. There's a study that I can send to you that talks about, you know, that the average person in LA County is probably making maybe $17 or $18 an hour. And the hourly wage that you need to make in order to rent a 1-bedroom apartment is like $25 an hour. So there's an $8 differential per hour that doesn't exist, you know, and so people are not spending 30%, they're spending 50, 60, 70% of their income on rent, or they're doubling up or tripling up, which often is, you know, the complaint of landlords. It's like, well, you know, there's 2 families living in my, you know, 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment, and it's because of the lack of affordability. I think that, you know, one is, I think that it's very important to continue to citizen as an individual, not point fingers. You need to get involved in your community. So in terms of building that relationship with your local city council person, your county supervisor, going to those meetings, going and getting involved with economic development committees. And because once they really understand, like, wow, this is incredibly important, or we see the need, then you're getting the attention of legislation actually happening. So I think we're on the right path. I think the biggest problem we have here in California is that we're so litigious, and there is quite a bit of environmental rules that make building an apartment unit compared to other states significantly higher. Like the cost per door can increase anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 per door, which is the reason why we run into these difficulties of affordability. And so I think that there probably needs to be a continued effort in terms of legislation and kind of understanding, like, look, you're kind of tying the hands of the developer who does want to build affordable housing, but because of the restrictions with CEPA or, you know, environmental protection, that you're adding $100,000, $200,000 per door, and it makes it very difficult to make the housing truly affordable.
Thank you so much for that. So that means we have some elections coming up, and so we need to become very vocal. Our community organizations need to become, and our community. So everyone, this is our problem, not just their problem. Thank you so much, Marcelo. You have just been a wealth of information. I am going to reach out to you so we can discuss the secession exiting webinar that I would like to have. And I'd like to make some introductions to you, especially to Michael Anderson. I think you two have some major synergy, and you would be beneficial to each other. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. You being here. I hope our audience receive some valuable information. And man, you're doing God's work. So thank you so much.
You could also give them some farming tips too.
And some farming tips. And I'm about that too. I'm about urban farming as well. So we have a lot to talk about.
Sounds good.
A couple of notifications that's in the chat room. Mr. Roger Danger Man returns. He has a new film coming out. So go to look in the chat room and there's a link there for you and his email. Today is the last day for rent relief. So if you know anyone that hasn't paid their rent due to the pandemic, please make sure they get their application in today. I have a client that received about 20 grand for her back rent, and so that's been a blessing for her. Nominations are being accepted for the 6th annual Danger Man Hero Award, celebrating the COVID heroes in our community. So reach out to Mr. Roger right there. And his contact information. You guys can you can copy the chat by going over to the 3 dots to the right under more, and it'll say chat. You can save it to your own computer. So if there's valuable information there. Michael Browning, thank you so much for your information on the vaccinations. We so appreciate that. Hopefully we're getting it under control. And we're on one quick question, Michael. I don't know if you're talking on the phone, but I know someone that told me yesterday they were going to do the flu shot in lieu of the booster shot. So I don't know. It's just so much craziness out there when it comes to to the vaccination. So guys, go to the sources, go to the CDC to get your information, so that we can make sure that we're protecting our community and our loved ones. I've got notification this week of several friends of mine that were exposed to COVID. And at this point, we should be protecting ourselves. So we want to thank you guys. Stephen, you want to tell us who's going to be here next week?
Next week, we have Mr. Everett Sam, the CEO of Industry. A lot of business owners, big or small, one of the biggest concerns they have is access to capital. Industry was an idea that now is a nationwide fintech lender. Mr. Sam is going to share how the industry was launched, their footprint, and how they can be a benefit to you, both debt, financing, as well as grants. That's next Thursday, October 7th at 11 o'clock.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. We so appreciate you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Marcelo, for sharing with us all this great information. And Stephen, thank you.
One last thing I'd like to add. I apologize for this. So, again, my name is Stephen. I'm the general principal of the Slayton Group. We're a risk management insurance firm providing workers' comp general liability. Well, I'm also one of the producers of the community briefing. And if you like what we do each and every Thursday, since Crystal launched this a year and a half ago, you can go to our website and make a donation. You go to www.communitybriefing.com, go to donate, and support us in our cause.
Thank you very much, guys. We so appreciate that. You also can get the archives of the show, of the other videos that are there for the last year and a half. So some valuable information there. And make sure you are connecting with each other. We can't solve our problems if we're working in silos. We have to work together. So that's important. And I believe that's what Marcelo was mentioning, that you have to have a team and a group of people working with you in order to push move yourself forward and also moving them forward. This is about us, the people. So if we come together, we have a bigger voice and we make a bigger impact. So thank you guys so much. And we will see you next Thursday, same bat channel, 11 a.m. Here at the community briefing. So have a great week, be safe, and we will see you guys next Thursday.